And after we got done eating, he was like, I feel so much better now. I'm like, okay, well, glad.
They make fun of girls for doing that, but clearly it's
Mm.
universal.
If he's not fed pretty regularly, we
Pretty
get a little
regularly.
we get a little anxious.
If we don't feed him on his schedule, he
Mm-hmm.
gets super cranky.
Super cranky.
Poor Chris. And he doesn't know it, but that's intro number one.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Blair.
And I'm Kirsten, and we are
Mediocre
content. And we have a topical intro this time because it's applicable to today's topic.
Yes.
So convenient. Immediately frozen. At least the intro was killer.
All right. So now that we've finally gotten through the intro, I was about to say that we're talking about One Direction. We're outing ourselves as One Direction fans. Kirsten's a little hesitant about that.
It is what it is.
But I'm going to update you guys on the Harry Styles concert, because if you've listened to the pod, you've known that a couple episodes ago, we talked about how the concert got canceled and Caroline and I waited in that line for so long and we got like front row seats and blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, nope, sorry, we're not doing it. And so they finally did the update. And if you follow me on Instagram, I'm sorry. But so we did the same thing. We got there in line to sit in line overnight. The concert was on a Thursday. We got there Wednesday night around midnight, and we were like so far back in line. It was awful.
Jeez. Yeah.
It was so bad. And because everybody had already figured out the system by then, and like people had like huge camping tents, and it was taking up a lot of room, first of all. And second of all, like, I think people were setting up tents and then leaving. Like the girls next to us, they had like a whole wagon full of stuff and they weren't even there for like 2 hours. And they finally came and like set up their tent and everything.
Jeez.
But I'm like, we could have moved their shit and they would have had no idea.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of like when you have like releases of games and everybody was like lining up at Best Buy or even like Black Friday.
Yes.
When people would like set up tents for silly things like that. It's just a lot.
That's what it is, except for it's almost exclusively women, but there are some men. Sure. And then there's a lot of parents as well. Right. We talked to a couple parents who were like, hey, so did you know how long the line is? You guys seem like you've been sitting here for a long time. We're like, yes, we've been here for 72 years. Let us tell you the scoop. So anyway, I was kind of upset because I was like, well, we're not going to get the same spots we got last time. It's going to be awful. But we persisted. And in the morning, we got in line for our wristbands. Last time we were like 216. And this time we were like 400 and something, 435, something like that. And so again, I'm just like, well, I guess it's just not meant to be. It's fine. Like, I'm just never going to have it. It'll be okay. I'm like accepting my fate. We get dressed and we sleep, we get dressed, same routine. Yeah. And we get in line and, we wait. There's like a line to find out where your number is. And then once everyone's in order, then you funnel into another line to go through security, and then there's another line to get into the actual venue. I know, it's crazy.
Line after
line. We finally get into the final line and we're like, okay, it's going to be fine. So Caroline and I split up because the stage is around. So one of us goes left, the other goes right. And we're like, okay, if you find an open barricade spot, just snag it and then call the other one and we'll just figure it out. So we both ended up finding a spot. And we picked the spot that I chose, which was over it was kind of behind, but it was like closer to so most of his performances take place on one side of the stage, but then he comes over to the other side and exits through the part of the stage where we were. So he like runs through the crowd, and I'm like, oh my God, this
That'd be
is
perfect.
perfect. I know.
Yeah.
So we finally we pick our spots, we sit down, we get some water, we get a snack, we go to the bathroom, we do things that are necessary for human life, and then and then the show starts, and Wet Leg opens for them.
That's
And
great.
Wet Leg is really good. I don't know if you guys know who they are. I think they're a British band. The two lead singers are female, and they're super good. Like I didn't
Oh.
that gives me like somewhat Paramore vibes a little
Oh,
bit.
cute. Okay.
Yeah, they were really good. And then Harry, because the stage is round,
Mm-hmm.
they have to wheel him in a box, like from back in the back to underneath the stage, so he can come out from underneath the stage.
That's great.
And everybody knows this, right? So it's like not a secret. It's like not. And so he comes out. It looks like there's like equipment in this box, but everybody knows it's him because it says like soft cargo on it or something like that. I don't know.
Cargo.
And
Anyway.
so everyone like screaming while Harry's like being wheeled in this box. We can't see him, but we just know that he's in the box. So, and everyone's like getting video of the box, like getting wheeled under there. And then the show starts and everything is wonderful and magical. And I don't even know what happened. And it was wonderful.
And everything else was a blur. And that's
everything
all I
else was a
remember
blur. Harry Styles at one point was like at least 3 feet from me, which is the closest I've ever been to him, and it's amazing.
I'm so happy for you.
And yeah, it was great. And he didn't stop moving the whole time. Like he's a ball of energy the
Not
whole
surprising.
time.
Yeah, that's good.
It was so good. And he like I was at the show where he ripped his pants, just so everyone knows, which I think
out him like that.
And like the fandom is calling it like the pants rip that's heard around the world. It was great.
Oh my gosh.
And I know. And it was just, it's so good. And he recovered though. He did well. He got a flag from the fans and tied it around his waist,
as you do,
and went on about his business, put on a great show, changed his pants halfway through. Everything was fine. It was good. Also, his stylist tweeted out, "I'm never putting that man in leather again," because the pants were leather that ripped. Anyway,
poor
so
guy.
it was good. It was a very wonderful show. Me and Caroline both had a great time,
which is good considering I know it was, y'all were kind of apprehensive about like
I know
going back and having to like redo all of that in the first place, which is just cumbersome, really.
I know. I will say I was not, it was just, it felt like a chore, driving 6 hours down to LA
again.
Right. Getting in line, doing the whole thing, but it was worth it. We had barricade spots. It was very good. It was very good. He puts on a really good show. That's awesome. I felt like it was great. It was wonderful. Good.
I'm glad you guys had a good time. And I'm sorry he ripped his pants.
I am not.
SpongeBob reference insert.
I know. It was it was the perfect show. It was wonderful. It was everything.
Well, don't worry. You don't have to stop talking about Harry pretty much this whole podcast.
I know. It's going to be so good.
Do you want to dive into a little disclaimer? Oh, also, my disclaimer is that we don't have any good news this week because everything around One Direction is sort of good news.
Yeah, we're going to be able to go on about this topic for like years. So it's covered. We're going to have a plenty of content for you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Mediocre or not, it's going to be
content.
It's going to be very full. So the disclaimer is we probably won't be able to cover everything about One Direction in this podcast because, like I said, we could go on for like 15 years. We would encourage you to listen to One Direction after this podcast. But if you don't want to and you don't like One Direction, that's fine too. You could skip this episode. We won't judge you. And also, you know, we don't know everything. I'm sure there are fans way more dedicated to the craft out there who will be like, you missed this, and oh well, you missed that. And I'm like, that's cool.
Right.
Comment down below. You know, we want your feedback. We want to know we want to know what we missed, because obviously that's new information to us. And so yeah, don't be too hard on us if you're a One Direction stan, because we're trying out here. You know, We're old. We got other things going on.
Oh my gosh. You know what? Honestly, putting together some of the information for this, I often forget that we are of the same age range as all of them.
I know.
And I'm always like, dang, at the same age, you are vastly more successful in life than I
know. I think about that all the time. I'm like, oh my God, Harry's turned 29 6 months before me, and he's done like a billion more things than me, but it's fine. It's okay.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning, shall we?
Yes.
Okay, so before we get into our feels and talk about opinions, preferences, etc., this first half is just gonna give someone who doesn't necessarily know a lot about One Direction an overview of who they are, how they started, all of that good stuff. So
yes,
One Direction is a British-Irish male boy band, and they entered the world in, I believe, 2010. They did, past tense tears, have 5 members. They are Louis Tomlinson, Liam Payne, Zayn Malik, Niall Horan, and Harry Styles, of course. And the distinction British Irish is very important, because while 4 of the members are from Britain, Niall Horan is actually from Ireland. So can't just say British, that's rude.
Kirsten, can you say now for me one more time?
Whatever. We're moving on. I'm not even going to bother.
It's so good. She says, all right, so this is my favorite part about Kirsten. This is why we're friends. Is because
this is only the reason.
This is the sole reason why we're friends. Because she says now like a Southern woman that she is, and it's actually Niall.
Whatever.
Anyway, continue. Moving on.
Niall Horan. I remember in college when all of this horrible, like, this horrible blasphemy started happening and coming at me so aggressively for the way I pronounce their names.
It is my favorite thing that you say.
Just, it gets caught in my mouth, okay?
I love it. I love it so much.
And that sounded weird. So anyway, we're going to move forward. They did not start as a group. They actually started as individuals who were auditioning for a British television show called The X Factor, and unfortunately none of them were selected as winners for their solo performances. But if you know this person named Simon Cowell, he's a rather famous critic along the singing voice avenues.
Honestly, if you haven't heard of Simon Cowell,
right,
what rock are you living under?
It's true. And he's vastly known across, I would say, pretty much everywhere, because he does these types of TV shows, like not just for Britain, but you know,
everywhere.
Yeah.
He got his first judging job, I believe, was on American Idol, the first season.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. And he's harsh, I would say, but I would also say he's very knowledgeable at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that kind of gives you a pass to a point. But because he's so knowledgeable, he looked at these, 5 soloists, and he's like, you know what? You guys need to be in a group. And so he contracted them together and created One Direction. And at that time, the group was between the ages of like 16 and 18. So they started as teenagers. Louis is the oldest of the group and Harry is the youngest. So Louis is currently 31. Zayn, Niall, and Liam, they're all going to be 30 this year. Zayn is already turned 30 because I think his birthday is in January. And Harry just turned 29 as of February 1. So Harry's 29 and Liam and Niall have birthdays later. So they also are 29, but they're going to be turning 30. That's why.
Yeah.
It works out that way. Birthdays, dates, fun things. Their first album was released in 2011 and it was called Up All Night, which I really love, obviously, because it debuted the viral song What Makes You Beautiful. It's probably the one song everyone can 100% identify with One Direction. And
Definitely. It is a
yeah,
bop.
it is a bop, even now, Um, and it would top the British Irish singles chart for 2012 and would be named the best British single at the Brit Awards that same year. And if you don't know what the Brit Awards are, they're essentially the British equivalent to like the Grammys, um, which is a really big deal. You got these teenagers up here and they basically just won a British Grammy within a year of releasing one album.
Yeah,
Like, that
exactly.
success is exponential.
I know.
uh,
It
yeah,
caught on like
it
wildfire.
did. Um, but this is where I think things start to make me sad.
Oh no.
It starts really early, but so in their career, they had 2011 Up All Night, 2012 Take Me Home. In 2013, they did a concert tour with their Midnight Memories released that same year. I actually own this DVD
I do
for
too.
their concert
I do too.
tour. 2014 was Four, and 2015 Made in the AM. And the reason I get sad is because it really, like, if you think about the timeline, if they really started in 2010, that's like 5 years.
Yeah, so
That's
they
not
were
a lot of
working,
time.
they put out an album
Yearly.
nonstop every single year for their
Yeah,
entire existence as a band.
exactly. And that's a lot. Honestly, that is a lot of work, especially
Yeah.
again, you have to think about how old they were. They were very talented, but also extremely young.
Yeah.
Um, so the boys had a really great run up until about 2014 when Four dropped. Uh, I put this into the notes where it says should have been an omen for what was to come with
I
an
know.
album like
So
Four.
the irony is in 2014
Yeah.
they released an album called Four with the five of them.
Yeah.
And then in 2015, Zayn announced he would be leaving, which is wild.
It's got to be like a sign. I don't know if they did it on purpose necessarily, but it was definitely a sign we should have been looking for.
Zayn was like, that's a good idea. And then just bounced. He was like,
Zayn was
I'm
like,
gone.
say less.
Yeah, say less.
But then after their release of Made in the AM, which was their first album without Zayn, they decided that they were going to go on, quote, a hiatus. And you know what? We ain't heard from One Direction as a band since. And I'm real upset.
That is honestly though.
Yeah, they should have just called it what it
like,
was. It was a breakup.
I know, but I couldn't. With like the fact that they did, oh.
That was a lot, but also nothing at the same time.
There's so many like trust issue problems like during this time in our lives too. Like not only did Sweetbriar close and then
back to our college episode.
Right. No, Sweetbriar closed, One Direction broke up, Trump became president. As far as I was concerned, the world was ending. Like I didn't know what was happening.
I didn't even make that conjecture. But geez. But
oh my God.
It was a lot.
No, because like I was at Chatham in Pittsburgh and like one of my roommates was also a One Direction fan and she's like, Blair, I don't think we're gonna make it. And I'm like, neither do I. It's gonna be awful.
I just wish I'm sure. Actually, I'm not sure. Maybe they really did have intentions to come back together, but I felt that like Zayn's exit, for me at least, kind of put a stamp on like, no, that's probably not going to happen,
Right.
And just to kind of make a parallel, even though this happened much more recently, I felt the same about Little Mix when gosh, is it Jesse who left?
Jesse, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of like as soon as Jesse left, I was like, oh no, this is like One Direction all over again. They're gonna do like one more hurrah show, and then the guarantee they're just gonna disappear off the planet. And lo and behold, they announced that they were going on like a hiatus of their own. So it's just, I know they don't want to disappoint their fans, but I was more disappointed that they kind of left us hanging for so long. Like, oh, maybe they'll come back, and I don't know.
Well, and a normal person would be like, oh, well, obviously they're not coming back. It's a hiatus. Right. But you would be shocked to know that like the amount of One Direction stan accounts that are still on the internet and actively going. because they're following all the boys separately, and they try to make, it's like the Taylor Swift fans that are like, they try to pick up on like little things, like they're actively trying to pick up on like little hints that One Direction is going to make a comeback. And it's
not.
fun, it's a fun time.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, okay, good. Because I was going to say that when Zayn left, it was like a significant impact to a lot of fans. Like there were so many girls that I knew who were like obsessed with Zayn. They were like, Zayn was One Direction for them. And I think I have a theory, that when Zayn left, those people moved on to the 1975. Like there's a direct Zayn leaving to stands of the 1975, which is a British band that we won't talk about in this episode, but there's a direct pipeline from Zayn leaving to the 1975 stands, in my opinion.
It's just because I think when that happens, it's almost like a rebound band, right? Like because you were so attached to this group and so attached to the individuals, and you do your research as a fan, and you really delve into their lives and what they're doing, and they're out like everything. And then suddenly it's like sucked away from you, and you're like, well, what the heck do I do now? And it sounds trivial. Like I feel like some people will be like, well, it's just a freaking band. But for some people, it wasn't just a freaking band. It was like the thing that cheered them up, the thing that got them through. I know we listened to it in our study sessions in college. Like it really does become an integral part of your life. And then all of a sudden it switches off.
I even have, like, since I've been on the Harry Styles train for this concert, I've even started listening to some of the One Direction like albums now, and it's instant serotonin for me. Like instant serotonin. And can I just say that there is a definitive shift in their content from, so like 2011 and 2012, Up All Night and Take Me Home, very good albums, very like typical boy band pop, like bangers, like super good. And then in those two albums, the aesthetic is very much like good British lads, like making it happen for them in their love life, blah blah blah. But then in 2012, when Midnight Memories promo came out,
oh my gosh,
that I think is when and like 2013, 2012, I think that's when we like first started on the train, if I'm correct.
Is sad though, because they didn't last much longer.
Well, I know that, but like I remember seeing those like promo pictures with like Zayn had tattoos, and then Harry had started getting tattoos, Liam, and then the whole vibe was just way more like edgy and like so good.
So good.
So good. And so I feel like that's when they were at their peak. And that was when Tumblr was a huge thing. And like One Direction on Tumblr was like, that's the whole reason I got a Tumblr.
Dangerous territory, Tumblr.
And my blog was called My Late Onset Boy Band Hysteria, just to out myself.
That's fantastic.
Because up until One Direction, I was not an NSYNC Backstreet Boys fan. Like I was not a super fan the way that I was for One Direction. One Direction was like maybe the Jonas Brothers too, but like One Direction was like the gateway drug into this whole thing.
I really liked NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. Apparently there's a rivalry nowadays where they're like, you can only like one, and I think that's BS, but
I think that's dumb too.
Just like what you like. But I do think that I don't think I developmentally put as much effort into like other ones leading up to One Direction as well.
That's
like,
fair.
So because I mean I had never gone to a concert prior, and we'll talk about that in the second half, but now they all have solo careers. They broke up officially in their fake hiatus in 2015, and so I noticed something, and maybe you know this as well. I noticed going through some of this information that like despite them having solo careers, they don't really do solo albums as much. It's more like singles and collabs. Like if you look at Liam's work, he's almost always collabing with somebody these days. Like he
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think Louis, Liam, and maybe Zayn. I know Zayn came out with his initial album. I don't know if he's
Mm-hmm.
come out with anything
Not
prior
a
to that,
lot. Yeah, not a
or not
lot.
prior, but like after that.
Yeah.
Um, Louis, Liam, and Zayn, I don't think had the drive to put out
Yeah.
more albums. Niall and Harry are the ones who have kind of stuck around in terms
Mm-hmm.
of like full studio albums.
Exactly. So the most recent one that I saw of Harry's was Harry's House.
Yes, it did so good, and that's what the concert was, and it was amazing.
Apparently
It's
Blair highly
honestly,
recommends.
it's my favorite album of his. Like his
Oh, good.
initial debut album was good,
Mm-hmm.
and Fine Line was good, but Harry's House speaks to me in
Oh,
like a really
good.
different way. It's so good, so much.
And then Nile has Heartbreak Weather. The other thing I would like to say, I don't really listen to them
Individually.
individually. And I hate that, but literally I just fell off the train. But anyway, Nile has Heartbreak Weather. Louis' most recent
Niles
one. Hmm?
Niles coming out with another one. He has a
Oh,
single out for his new
okay.
album. So that's coming out
So
soon.
okay, so maybe a 2023 hit for
Yeah.
now. So just, if you're into
Hmm.
him, just be aware it's coming out.
Yep, yep.
We got Faith in the Future for Louis. LP1, which I'm assuming just stands for Liam Payne 1, and we'll get to Liam later.
Blech.
But that's his most recent album. And then Zayn had Nobody Is Listening. But Zayn is also one of those, he like puts out a lot of singles, not a lot of
Yeah.
full-fledged albums. So, they're they all have their own avenue. They all have their own thing that they're doing. But I agree with you. Harry and Niall are the most active. Even Louis is pretty active, but not as often.
Well,
Um,
and I think Louis,
yeah.
Liam, and Zayn also all have like significant others that and also have babies.
Right.
Like
Right. So
of
yeah.
all three of them have like family lives and stuff too, where Niall and Harry are both like,
Yeah.
just hang like
Just
making
do
music, doing what they love to
it.
do.
Right. So it's also a lifestyle difference in that case, so that, be a little bit different, but I don't know. I want to give them a break before we dive into the
I know.
the nitty gritty.
Yeah, they need a break. This was a good overview though, I think.
Yeah, I
So,
think so too.
yeah. So we'll see you guys on the other end of the break.
Congratulations, you've made it to the ad segment of the podcast.
Don't worry, the podcast is now, thankfully, halfway over, and we think you'll have what it takes to push through to the end. You got this.
We completely understand if you have to bow out for now, but if you do, make sure to come back at some point to try and finish what you started. Or not. That's also fine.
If you got what it takes to continue,
We know you do.
keep listening so you can get this over with. And be sure to tune in to future
Mediocre content.
Welcome back, everybody. We are on the second half of our One Direction journey.
And I would just like to say that Kirsten and I did not stop talking. Like we paused for a second and we just continued to talk about what we were talking about before.
So
So
yeah,
we just thought we would hit record again so you guys would know what we're
let's
saying.
let's freaking do it. I have like a couple of things in here that I just wanted to touch on, just
Sure.
for for the sake of it, right? So of course we have the favorites journey, right? So favorite starting and ending member. Do you have a favorite starting or ending member? I mean, you like Harry now, and that's great, but did you start with
Yes.
Harry, or
So, okay. So this is what happened. I initially in One Direction Niall, and that's because he happy, like super chill. He's just seemed the persona that he gave off in the
Mhm.
group was just like the guy who was willing to just go with the flow. And that's
Right.
attractive to me. I thought that was, a really good quality to have, especially in a group of five guys,
Right.
touring together. It's I also like, I think Harry would have been my second choice.
Mm-hmm.
Um as a favorite in the band. If we were, that would be culture bias, by the way. Just fun
little biased.
fun group vernacular there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those two have always been like my favorite. What about you?
Well, my starter was Zane. I feel like I just said like starter Pokemon. My starting Pokemon was Zane. And it just I kind of liked the darker, grungier kind of look.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what got me into it, honestly. But truthfully, it wasn't even the members that got to me. I ended on Niall. Niall's like the guy that I prefer out of all of them. And if I cared to still listen to his music, I would. But it really hit me in my feels, and I just kind of dropped all of them.
You definitely, I was going to say, you felt more like really betrayed by them, I think, after all that happened. And it was just not happening for you.
It's so silly, considering they don't even know who we are. Like
I know. Well, no, it's not though, because like I stopped watching Grey's Anatomy after they killed off McDreamy. So like I feel you. I was not putting up with that at all.
Well, the thing is, so a little bit of backstory is that outside of you, Nadira and Victoria were huge fans of One Direction. Like that's all they talked about. They were all into it, and they all liked. Of course, Victoria was all into Harry, and I think Nadira really liked Harry too.
I think so too. I think she was also a Louis and Zayn stan
probably
as well.
Yeah, I could see that. Nadira, if you do listen to this, let us know. I'd love to know. I don't remember now. It's been quite a while, but this is actually a song from them that got me into them, and I think it was Nadira who played it. Maybe you were there. I don't really remember a whole lot from the initial phase, but it was excuse me, I just choked on my spit. I'm so emotional. But it was All These Little Things. Like that was the song that was my gateway song into being
that's off Memories, right? The Little Things, or no, is it the first? I
think it's like one of their first ones.
Take Me Home. Yeah.
And honestly, it's got a lot of good Niall vocals in there, to his credit. And so I started listening to them more, and then as a group, for some reason, we decided that we were going to spend money to go to a concert. And then
we did.
And so we did go
in Philadelphia, randomly enough.
Exactly. That was an interesting ride. And an interesting concert. It was my first concert ever also, which was a lot of fun. And I don't also remember a whole lot from it, but I
remember seeing them interact on stage for the first time, and noticing like the little like interaction like between the bandmates, because they don't do like the group dancing situation. So they're constantly just like,
moving
around and like finding people to interact with. So it was cute. It was fun.
The most vivid memory I have from it is actually all of the people with the Harry style face cutouts that made me feel really awkward. That I did not like.
That's so interesting because I have no memory of that at all.
There was a group of girls that was right in front of us, and they all had one. And I remember thinking, could you just lower them? He doesn't want to see his own face in the crowd.
Oh my God.
I can't believe you don't remember that.
You are I think now with this vivid like feeling you just gave me, like don't yuck their yum. Like they're doing what they want to live their best fangirl life. They couldn't even see us where we were sitting anyway, so who cares?
They couldn't see us and we couldn't see anything, so that's great.
Right. Oh my God.
But anyway, it was my first concert. I was judging everyone.
It's giving that like I shaved my legs and like put on a nice outfit for a guy who's going to be doing a concert who has no idea I exist. It's giving that energy.
Absolutely it is. And I came here and I wanted to look fab. And we did look fab because we made our own hats.
We did. We made our own hats that had like One Direction on them and like all kinds of stickers and buttons. And it was really cute.
And that is a throwback to Sweetbriar and the tap hats.
No, don't stop.
That's really why we did it.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We're not.
We'll dive into that another time.
We'll not be talking about that on this podcast.
But with that though, All These Little Things is my favorite song, but we discussed something during the break that Blair wants to talk about, which is the albums, like the favorite albums that they did. And I actually agree with her opinion.
Yeah. So, like, kind of what I was saying partially before, Up All Night and Take Me Home was like their baby phase, right? So they, everyone was very clean cut. There was a lot of polo shirts and like sweaters, aka jumpers, if you're in Britain. And then Midnight Memories really made that shift to them being older, like in their 20s. There was tattoos and ripped denim, and like Harry, we'll talk about Harry's like hair phases here in a minute, because that was a whole like epidemic. But Four and Made in the AM in 2014 and 2015 were their last two albums. And those two albums, I think, are the best ones. And they don't get enough credit because there's all this drama going on with Zayn leaving and just like the band surviving as four of them. But they're very mature, like well-written albums. Ed Sheeran wrote a couple of songs on those albums for them. It's good. They're both really good. Really good.
The ones I re-listen to the most.
And honestly, like the music that Niall and Harry are currently doing is not that far off from like the vibe of Four and Made in the AM.
That's true. You're right.
Like they're very similar. I would say like Liam and Louis are both doing like way different stuff.
And didn't Zayn kind of went down sort of like a rap kind of R&B
kind of vibe. Yeah.
Which is fine. I think he has the vocals for it, but it's totally. It's very different than what they were doing even on those two last albums.
Yeah.
I feel. Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're just super underrated.
They're really good.
They're both my favorite, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. They are the ones that I pull out the most if I do want to listen. I'm just like, oh yeah, these are the ones I want to vibe with.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to talk about Liam. I don't, but I do.
Okay, can I talk about K-pop versus and One Direction really quick?
Yes.
I think it would add to the Liam conversation we're about to have.
I think so as well.
Okay. Yeah. So I have recently, because of Caroline, gotten into K-pop. And K-pop is notorious for having a lot of groups that have a ton of members. So like many. BTS has 7, but they're low compared to other groups.
It's just insanity.
Right. Yeah. And it's also well known that K-pop is like rigorous into the touring schedules, the albums that are expected to come out. They're supposed to be producing content like 24/7. Like it's very rigorous what they have to do and what the expectations are, because it's like very much viewed as like a career and an all-consuming lifestyle if you decide to do that over. And so, but the thing that I think is great, which I think we could do in America, is each of BTS, for example, there's 7 of them. Each one has a solo career
at the same time.
So yes. Yeah. So now one of their members had to go into the army for mandatory service. All the other 6 can have their solo careers, and then they'll get back to once everybody's done they need to do, which I think is a really like great way.
Yeah.
Because those fans, especially now in the days of the internet, like those fans don't go away.
No.
So if it just give our the freedom to have solo careers as well as be a part of this band or a group, I think that that's a really like efficient and smart way to like have boy bands or, groups in general.
Agreed. I'm also going to turn my camera off because you're glitching really bad. Just a side note.
Oh God.
Hold on. Maybe this will help.
Okay.
Is that better?
I hope everybody heard what I had to say.
Yeah. No, it was, it kept coming in and out, but it was like catching up with you. So it was still talking.
So it was okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree. And I've listened to a couple of, like, isn't it Jimin who
Mm-hmm.
recently came out with Vibe? That's an excellent song.
Yes.
And I think it is a really good way to do it because, number one, you can still build your like individual kind of internal fan base, and they're
Mm-hmm.
already a fan of you, to be fair, because the band made them a fan of you. So they're
Right.
gonna, they're gonna listen to what you have. But if you in One Direction's case, where that it did not happen, and the individualism started afterwards, after it was kind of dramatic once people started to kind of pull away from the band. I think
Yes.
that's what makes it really difficult, because then you're kind of breaking up with your fans, because they were a fan of One Direction and they didn't have a lot of individualism to tie them
Right.
to the rest of the members as members.
Right.
And so everybody loved Harry as a personality, which is, I think, a really big booster for him. And then
Mm-hmm.
when he started coming out with his individualized stuff, they were like, oh yeah, we're on board. But
right.
for the other ones, it's kind of like, well, he kind of fell off, and Zayn broke a lot of people's hearts. And like, I'm gonna get too soon, Liam's kind of a jerk now for some reason. And
Right.
it just,
yeah.
you lose the momentum.
Well, and it gives you, if you're allowed to have your solo career as well as be in the group, it gives you
You're
more
happier.
freedom as a group to kind of take a break for a second and stop the wheels.
Heck yeah.
Because, they were going, year after year after year. They were on tour recording their next
Yeah, they were
album, which I think is doable. But after a while, I mean, it's exhausting. So, not that I have any experience in this field at all, but like,
but it becomes unrealistic.
Yeah, totally. So I think that in the future, to avoid these problems, I think adopting that model would be way better.
I think so too. And it definitely wouldn't leave the fans high and dry. They wouldn't have a bad taste in their mouth with it. I mean,
Right.
even the hardest One Direction fans still probably have a little bit of hurt, like it
Totally.
just, because I felt that way about like My Chemical Romance like years and years ago. But I felt like that because, they just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one day you were jamming out and the next it was all gone and all over.
Right.
So I get it.
Yeah, it's tragic. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we can talk about Liam. I'm ready to talk about Liam.
Okay, so speaking of this Joker, so the other thing that happens when you go solo, for some reason, is
I have theories. I know why he's like this, but continue.
Sure. So if you don't know, and I don't even, what was the name of the group that he was with during this?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Liam went on another podcast. It's kind of like a conversational kind of podcast.
He went on, first of all, he went on the Logan Paul podcast,
okay,
which
is that's what it was.
Logan Paul, if you don't know who he is, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, and I would say some people also agree with me about this, that he's a garbage human being.
Absolutely.
And Liam went on this podcast because he wanted to air out some grievances that he had for whoever advised him to do this is an idiot. Yeah. And the fact that Liam wanted to do this also makes him an
worse.
Idiot.
Yeah.
It's such garbage. And so this is the origin story that has made Liam the garbage human being that he has become. So when One Direction was first formed, Simon Cowell, legend has it, Simon Cowell.
Legend has it.
Simon Cowell promised Liam that he could be like the front runner of this band. He could be like the Justin Timberlake to NSYNC. Like he could be that guy. And it made sense in the first few albums because Liam had the most experience as a band member in the music field. And none of the other boys really knew what they were doing. Like Harry had a band prior to this as well, but it was like a garage band, it wasn't anything like what Liam had experienced. And so Liam goes into this thinking that, he's going to be the next greatest musician to ever live. And unfortunately for him, the fans picked Zayn and Harry as the the fan favorites
Right.
because for, you know, who they are as people.
Right. And honestly, you can kind of see that. I think you can kind of see that happening because on the first couple of albums, who has the most lines in the videos? Who is pictured most? I would argue to say Liam. And
Yeah.
in the group shots, of course, I would say he's usually front and center for the most part. So they were trying to push for that.
Right.
But I mean, if you look at Harry and Zayn, I would say number one, at that age, at the beginning, right, when they first started, I would say you've got Harry, who looks like the cute, pretty boy, very easy to attach yourself to, very easy to love. And then you have Zayn, who is the edgier, kind of complete 180. Like they had very distinctive like looks and feels to their sounds,
right,
that I think
they also
made
had
them popular. No, you're
sorry
good.
to interrupt. But I have strong feelings. They also had, in my opinion, Zayn and Harry have more of a vocal range than Liam has.
They do. And so I think they stood out very obviously, despite the effort to kind of push forward somebody that they, you know, promised or assumed would kind of be the fan favorite. And I just think, even though I think vocally Liam is great. Like I do enjoy his voice and I think he has a great voice, but I think he was not distinct enough compared to Harry and Zayn.
Correct.
Like they just were so distinctive in all portions, looks, vocals, personality. It was just very obvious to me anyway.
I agree. Harry and those dimples, man, you can't,
yeah,
you just
but,
can't.
You know,
like even at the concert that me and Caroline just went to, Caroline is not the biggest like One Direction or Harry Styles fan, but she went because she has forced me to go to lots of BTS concerts. So it's like a trade-off.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, Blair, like he is just like objectively hot. Like he's objectively good looking.
Yeah.
And the little, like the smile and like the way that he flirts with the crowd, it's like it's wild. It's just, you can't, there's no overcoming that. You know what I mean?
I think there's also, and this is just me and my opinions now, so just speculation, right?
Sure.
So I think there's also something distinctive about somebody who does not have to try to be front and center.
Yes.
You know, so like, you know, like I would say all of them are like attractive as individuals, right? But if I had to say, you know, who had to force it less, I would say it's Harry and Zayn, and even Louis and Niall to a point. I do not think that the other boys outside of Liam, now 2020 hindsight looking back, I do not think they were trying or vying for attention. I do think Liam was, and when it was not received as aggressively, things maybe took a turn personally.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think the other boys were just in it for fun. You know, they like wanted to have a nice time with their friends, and that rigged back to the crowd because crowd wanted to have a nice time with them. And then when Liam, even in after, like if you're looking, once Zayn left and when you watch the carpool karaoke of the four of them with James Corden, Liam is so trying to get attention. I can't unsee it now. It's awful. And I think he's sad because he was not chosen as the one. And I think, first of all, that's a shitty attitude to have. And it says a lot about his character.
Right.
Person. And so then he went on Logan Paul's podcast and was like, well, there was some fighting in the band, and he was just like airing out all of this dirty laundry. He like apparently shoved someone up against a wall, which in my head, I assume it's either Zayn or Harry. It has to be.
Yeah, no way. No, I can't imagine him and Niall in a fist fight.
Oh my, I can't imagine Niall in a fist fight with anyone. Oh my God.
Exactly.
No. So like it's too, it broke a lot of Directioners' hearts, I think, because he basically was like, yeah, we were having a bad time. And he like confirmed that they were all having a bad time, and that's why they had to like break up. And
And as a fan, you don't want to hear that.
No.
As a fan, keep your dirty laundry to yourself.
Also feel, well, and I also feel bad because they were not having a good time like way before we all knew they weren't having a good time, you know? So I'm like
bogus. And I think I would I would take Liam's opinion for a grain of salt, and I would say Liam was not having a good time because Liam was not center of attention. But I would say the other boys were probably for it and like really into it. But then when Liam started, you know, showing
having
himself
his attitude,
and I think that Zane walked out because he's like, well, crap, I can do this on my own and not have to deal with the drama, so bye. And I get that, you know, in hindsight, I get it.
Totally
So, you know, and honestly, Liam aside, like, I can't imagine the other boys harboring, you know, that much, you know, disdain
for each other
time together, you know, like if Liam feels that way. Oh, also the interesting caveat to all of this, to be fair, is Liam was intoxicated during this interview. So I would like to put that out there. Or at least a little
drinking.
Bit buzzed.
He was drinking significantly on the podcast. I don't know if he was drunk before or like coming in.
Right. So everybody's like, well, you know, you really find out, you know, when you were impaired, you know, for example, like how you really feel. But I would also like to say, perhaps if he was not as intoxicated, perhaps he would not have phrased it as aggressively as he did, and maybe would have had a little more sense and tact with his words. No, you're fine. Yes, but who knows?
I agree. Well, it is what it is now. But bottom line is, I did not think Liam was going to be a significant role in the breakup until recently. And now everything is different and he's no longer. I think it should be Harry, Niall, Louis, and Zane, and Liam should leave. That's what I think.
And that honestly, that kind of brings me to the last kind of portion I wanted to kind of discuss is the possibility of a reunion tour. I think Liam sunk that.
Oh, totally.
I think he sunk it for everyone, and not just for the other boys, but for fans. Like for us, we're like, oh, well, now you've definitely ruined any chance we thought we had of you guys doing like a comeback or a reunion tour if possible. Like, I don't know. I would be very surprised if all of them came back together.
I agree. I could see Harry and Niall doing something together. I kind of was hoping, because Niall has all this new music coming out, that he was going to show up at one of Harry's concerts or something like that. That's obviously not going to happen. But that's kind of what I was hoping. But I don't everybody else, I don't think so. They all seem to communicate and like wish each other happy birthdays and stuff like that.
Sure. But that's just
online,
like politeness.
Yeah.
You know, after knowing each other for so long, probably.
Yeah. And then I know for a fact Harry and Niall both still post on like the One Direction anniversaries. Just to say like, you know, thank you so much for like making this possible for us and blah blah blah. But
so probably not.
I think it's over, guys.
I want to be hopeful, but I'm also like, if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, because
I know
I'm kind of over it. But
if it does happen, though, your girl's gonna be there. Your girl's gonna be there.
Yeah. On the flip side, I will be ecstatic if it does happen, which is just it's just how it flips.
That's right. I will quit my job. I will be there. It's happening.
I will quit my
job. I will be there. No.
Yeah. But honestly, that's kind of all I had, drama aside.
Yeah.
If you are a fan, we'd love to know. I'm sure there's probably one or two of the people that listen to us that might at least know who One Direction is. Or if you have a band that you feel the same way about, maybe it's not One Direction, maybe it is the My Chemical Romances that are still out there, really sad. Gerard does make music still, by the way, so if anybody was a fan, there's still music out there for those who might be interested. I don't listen to it, but I know he makes music.
Oh my god, what is it with you? You only listen to the groups. You don't listen to the. You don't support your people.
Look,
come on.
If it's over, it's over. I just want to be done with it, you know?
Oh my, you heard it here first, folks. Kirsten has no patience for that nonsense.
Oh, dang. Just do your own thing and leave me alone. I'm sad.
Oh my God.
Anyway, besides that, as always, you can reach out to us if you want to, especially if you disagree with me. We'd love to get emails from you at mediocrecontentpodcast@gmail.com. Send us a tweet at mediocresquawks or follow us on Instagram at mediocrecontentpodcast. Anything else from you, Blair?
No.
Okay. You're just gonna be sad.
I'm like sad this is over now. I love talking about this so much.
Yeah, it is a really good topic, and we got to air out all the other dirty laundry that we felt.
So much feelings, so many feelings. All right.
Yes. Well.
So anyway, you guys have a good week, and we'll see you next week
for more feelings, because it'll be Valentine's week.
More feelings.
All right. See you then.
Cheers.
Cheers.